And since today we're doing this webinar on Zoom, which will also be simultaneously broadcasted on Docplexes. So we expect to be taking questions from both the platforms over here on Zoom and from Docplexes. Please put your questions in the chat and we'll take them up either during the discussion or later after the discussion is taken place. So AI, we're talking about artificial intelligence in diabetes care today. So many of us, like me, for example, we got into technology 15, 18 years ago because of the promise of AI. There was that is the reason we got into technology. And now we had ChatGPT, the first popular way of using AI, which has been launched 1 year ago. Since then, in the last 1 year, tremendous amount of hype around it and tremendous amounts of caution and doomsday prophecies with the use of AI. So we as doctors need to actually dissect it properly, examine its potential in its current form and in its future form, and see how it can be used for diabetes care management. So to help us discuss this whole topic in detail, we have with us Dr. Om Lakhani. Dr. Om Lakhani is an endocrinologist at Zydus Hospital and is also the co-founder of Mellitus and Infotech. Hello, Dr. Om. Good to have you here.
Hi, Neelesh. Thank you for having me.
And we also have with us Dr. Arbinder Singhal, the co-founder and CEO of Butterfly Health Tech. Hi, Dr. Arbinder.
Hi, Neelesh. Hi, Om. Hi, Arbinder.
Yeah. So before I kickstart this now, I'll just end the poll that we have done over here and share the result of where people are in the current usage of AI, the ones on this. So we got 29 answers. 28% say yes, they're using some form of AI. 60% say no, they're not using any form. And around 15% say that they're planning to use very shortly. We had kind of similar result also on Docplexes, but there we had 70% said that they do not use AI and 20% said that they're planning to. So good to see that at least 30 to 40% of them are already using or in the process of using very soon. So this was the first poll that we have done. And as we start, I would like to again remind everyone that please put your questions in the chat and we'll take them up in the end. So let's start with the first question. I'll put it to Dr. Arbinder, to you. So Dr. Arbinder, given the whole potential of AI in everything, especially in diabetes care that we're talking on today, what do you think is the current role of AI in diabetology? And what role do you see for its potential impact in the future?
No, that's a question which gets up from the sleep every morning. You see the potential of technology impacting not only the patient's lives, but also the doctor's lives, and also everybody else in the value chain in the care, right from diagnostics to devices to also hospitals, everyone. I think everybody will benefit from AI in diabetes. Specifically, when we talk about certain case scenarios, I think medical image analysis like diabetic retinopathy is now getting diagnosed within even iPhone cameras or simple devices in hospitals. That is already happening. Then diabetic foot diagnosis, there are a lot of things happening on that diagnosis. Early diagnosis like simple risk predictors at population level, and even mining the data from a disease which is so multifaceted. Like there's genomics data available, there is behavioral data available about people, there is blood test data available, there is their lifestyle, sleep, stress data available. Just combining this all to understand the risk of diabetes, the risk of progression of diabetes, the various complications, can just gamify the whole way we think about diabetes. I think that large level, multifactorial, multi-device, multi-user set kind of data can really power the diabetes care in making it more personalized. And then finally, once we know these risk scores and all these things, even the drug effects, the drug impact, finally, how do we use this data to nudge the people towards making themselves better? Doctors face challenges. In India, Om and I were talking yesterday. In India, so many people in diabetes are underdiagnosed. Then people who are diagnosed, 60% of them not achieving right control. So obviously, a lot of things can be done using AI in medication adherence, getting them to healthy lifestyle, or just predicting their overall things and costs and insurance and all those things can fundamentally be transformed by AI. Just imagining these huge possibilities is what drives us at Fitterfly, and that's what led us to start X Labs within Fitterfly.
Thanks, Arbinder. This is like mind blown. You can do so much. Dr. Owen, your comments. How do you see the potential of using AI in diabetes?
Yeah, I think, let me start with actually an anecdote. I was thinking about how, to really bring AI to audience, which is mainly doctors. So, a little bit of a story here. So, some of you might be knowing Dr. S.V. Kulkarni, who is a physician in Mumbai, and he's very interested in, his field. So, in one of the groups where, there was a little bit of discussion on AI and that, he actually posted a very interesting, link of a newsletter. The newsletter is coincidentally called Eureka. Okay. So, I saved it in one of my, quote unquote AI tools where, it brings these things back after a few days with a short summary saying that this is what, you probably need to read. So just a few days back, while we were planning of this event, I woke in the morning, I saw this, I said, this is interesting, I must really read this. Trust me, I read that paper. My mind, that term Eureka literally, happened for me, right? It's like, I think, I tell you what the paper is about. And, it will actually pique a lot of interest for a lot of audience also. So, you remember Arthur Conan Doyle, right? The person who wrote Sherlock Holmes, right? And Sherlock Holmes is actually designed after apparently a physician. Apparently, Dr. Conan Doyle also worked as a medical student for a while. I don't know if he finished his medicine, but so there was a senior physician who was very sharp in terms of his diagnostic skills, right? So he could hear, the patient coming, and he would say, "Look, this is a Parkinsonism patient coming, right?" Or whatever they called it then. Or he would say, he will just look at the patient and say that, are you in distress or are you constipated? That kind of thing. So what this paper they did was, all they did was they took voice samples from volunteers. And they compared their voice samples with their final diagnosis in terms of whether they were having diabetes as per the ADA classification or they were not having diabetes. They analyzed the voice sample data, and they actually found very interesting correlations, which they then, prospectively tested in some patients, and they were actually correct, saying that they could predict the diagnosis of diabetes just from a voice sample, right? Interestingly, if you go just a few months back, there was a study where they actually looked at the chest X-ray and they made the diagnosis whether the patient is having diabetes or not. Now, a lot of you will be thinking that how does a voice sample or how does a chest X-ray actually make a diagnosis of diabetes? Well, this is basically a correlation of data, which machine learning tools do it very well. And so what it does is basically it looks at the data in a more fine, granular way, reinforces the data and looks at certain patterns which we often miss, right? Which we often miss in our day-to-day practice, but which a smart physician probably would have made a diagnosis in that time where there was no tests available, right? So, we are, very interestingly, the entire circle is coming around, right? We started with clinical examinations and relying on our instincts and clinical skills to make a diagnosis. You see the patient, you talk to the patient, you listen to their voice, you listen to their gait, you see their shuffle, you see how their expressions are, and then make a diagnosis, to an era where we are completely dependent on investigations. I can't make a judgment call on the patient without, getting a whole sort of investigation pool done. And then now you're moving back to the basics, that is just looking at the patient basic clinical diagnosis, and we're coming to the diagnostic thing. We are coming to the whole circle now, of course, with AI, right? So probably what the Dr. Conan Doyle's mentor did, I think we are coming back to that era. I think in future, where I envision this is that you will be, I think we'll be less dependent on tests. You'll be looking at the patient, probably wearing one of those Ray-Ban Meta glasses or the Apple Vision Pro or whatever, fits, right? You will scan the patient and you'll make the diagnosis, right? You have diabetes, you have hypothyroidism, which is not controlled. Are you taking your medications properly, right? And then tests would be optional, right? Because now, what you have is, you have a large pool of, clinical biomarkers, and you have a large pool of the laboratory collaborations of that, right, or the other investigations which can correlate. Now we generate a system where the clinical parameters, they actually match with the lab results, right? In fact, I don't know if you're aware, my MD thesis was actually way ahead of the time. We actually used a digital stethoscope. We recorded the cardiac murmurs, and we analyzed that and compared with echocardiography, right? Now, I was just a decade little early, because if I had done in the today's era of AI, I could actually have got clinical diagnosis which is so close to almost a echocardiography, right? It's quite possible now. So what AI really does is, and for clinicians like us, right, it can actually look a little layer deeper than what we often miss with our naked eye and with our basic judgment. It can actually make a diagnosis and correlations which are a little deeper, right? So just with an X-ray, just with a voice sample, you can actually make a diagnosis of diabetes mellitus. So we are less dependent now on invasive tests, and we are probably going back to that era where just a clinical diagnosis can really come back. So I think it's fascinating. I'm all for it. I think this is perhaps when AI was envisioned, one of the first use cases, somebody remembers ELIZA was one of the first. ELIZA was one of the first chatbots which was made way back in 1968, right? And that was intended for medical use, right? And we are again coming back a full circle there as well, right? Where Arbinder and some of us are making chatbots which can help the patients, right? So we are a little bit coming back to that. I think that long period of AI winter was probably because of the fact that we did not have that much of storage spaces or that processing speed and all that. Now we have all of that, right? Our processing speeds on our mobile phones is faster than what we had in our computers a decade back, right? So we have all the tools. I think the age of AI is there, right? I think we would be really if we don't flow with that, I think we are going to be left behind. So that's the reality, right? Forget the doomsday policy and all the other things. I think it's here to stay. It's going to help us. It is going to help our patients. It is going to help us as human beings as well. I think there are capabilities there which are beyond our understanding, and I think we really need to embrace
Recording
it
in
and
progress.
Look at it in a futuristic sense.
Thank you, Dr. Om. And this really, dives in very nicely with my second question. So I remember ChatGPT 1 year ago when it came in, it was a big boom for all of us. And then within 3 months, I saw you launching the Dr. GPT.
Yeah.
That was your very quick launch. So how do you see this whole system of using AI chatbots for patient engagement or self-management of diabetes? Do you think this will catch on?
Absolutely, right. If you can give me a second, I'd like to share some of the work we have done. You talked about Dr. GPT, and Dr. GPT was, it's difficult to believe that it's just a few months, but I think Dr. GPT is completely obsolete, right? It was just an attempt for me trying to code my way into AI, right? That's what I'd say. I actually learned coding way back. I completely forgot about it. I, sort of relearned and rekindled my skills, trying to generate systems which initially would help me as a doctor, right? Perhaps in future will help some people as well. So, in that journey, we have created a few experiments here and there. Now, please, mind you, these are all experiments. These are not, do not have any commercial interest right now. It's all basic, maybe in future, but right now they are just basically lab experiments. So I'm going to show you a couple of lab experiments which we have done. I'm sure it will be, once it's made into probably a commercial product, it's going to be useful to a lot of people. So I was talking about the voice biomarker, which, this was the paper. This was the acoustic analysis and prediction of type 2 diabetes using smartphone recorded voice segments. It's very interesting. I would suggest you read this paper, not for the fact that, just to see what are the capabilities of what AI can do, right? That's really, and the interesting part is the volunteers in this paper. This is a paper from Toronto. The volunteers were from India, right? So the paper was actually done, the study was done on Indians, which is also, even more interesting. So I think we need to really look at this in a very, a nuanced way. So we're trying to develop some of the things for doctors mainly, which could help doctors to unlock the potential of AI. So you're developing a system called diabetology.co.in. We got a little bit of fund from RSSDI to run this project. Now the idea here is that when you see a patient with diabetes, there are so many parameters that you need to look at, right? You need to look at the patient's blood sugars, you need to look at the patient's weight, you need to look at the patient's cardiac condition, the cardiac risk, the renal risk, whether the patient has retinopathy or not, right? So how do you really, in a short span of time where you have just a few minutes interacting with your patient, how do you analyze all this data and generate a prescription which is not only evidence-based, but it is also something which you could be proud of and which is going to help your patients in future, right? So that's the sort of problem that we are solving for doctors to give a prescription which is a more wholesome prescription rather than just focusing on adding this medicine or that medicine, right? So for example, let's say you have this patient who you can see the clinical profile, you have all these data points which are available to you, right? So you go to the system, it's called diabetology.co.in. It's currently in the first prototype version. You can try it out. It's completely free of cost. Give me a feedback if you feel that, there's something you can add. Again, this is just a labor of love. It's trying to, a little bit of a lab experiment, little bit of, trying to, make my hands dirty with the AI system, right? So what you do is this is the first screen. So you can put in the patient's data. Right now, it may not be exactly same as what I'm showing you because the what we uploaded is a slightly one version behind from what we already made, right? So we'll upload the new thing soon. So you enter the patient's data, right? So you have all the data. We discuss all the data points. Now you just need to compulsorily add only 3 data points. That is HbA1c, the patient's a fasting blood sugar, and creatinine. Everything else is optional. But the more data you put in, the better response you get in terms of the output, right? So it's a hybrid. It's a combination of hard-coded stuff with AI, right? It's a hybrid tool. So it will give you everything, you'll get an output like this. Does the patient need insulin? What is the diabetic kidney disease status? Is the patient a candidate for a new drug, Finrenol? Is the patient, what is the cardiovascular risk of the patient? You'll get whole lot of things. Plus, then to start recommending you medications, right? For example, let's say you require rosuvastatin, right? This patient would require metformin, and it will also tell you why, right? That's the interesting part. That's the AI part, right? So, it says that, the LDL target should be 50. This patient is a high risk, so on and so forth, right? So these kind of things you will get, right? And then you can go to the next page where you can modify the prescription. So let's say I'm not happy. I don't want to put the patient on rosuvastatin. I want atorvastatin. Fine. You can make the changes, right? Then you have the final prescription, right? You can add the brand names and everything, and then just, maybe add more medicines or delete some medicines. And then finally, you have the prescription, which you can download in a PDF format, right? Now, this entire thing actually timed it because, the RSSDA project we are working, the mentor said that, why don't you time this? It takes all in all just 3 minutes to enter the entire data for a clinician who is not well versed with the system, right? Well, for me, it takes just 1.5 minutes. But somebody, so it just takes 3 minutes to enter the data. In fact, you can save this time also by asking your assistant to enter the data. It's very easy to enter those, basic clinical parameters, and it will generate your prescription. And we have now back tested. We are coming with a paper where we are testing our own prescriptions against that generated by the system, right? And it's quite eerily close. And in fact, probably in some of the cases, I'd say this prescription was better than what I generated myself, right? So there were certain nuances which I missed. And, you get from that, right? So this is one system we are trying to develop. It's called diabetology.co.in. You can check it out, try it out. It's going to, save you time and help your patients. And I think, that's a unique thing which it's going to do, right? Second thing, which, again, we have been developing for a while. I think Neelesh had seen a few prototypes of this. It's called Endo AI. It's endoai.co.in. Now, what we did here, I'm not going to show you the whole video, but, we are now in the, probably a stable version of it. So what you do is, so here what we've done is we have tied up with an online resource called Endo Text. Now we are thankful to Arbinder knows Dr. Sanjay Kalra. He was very helpful in, he's one of the section editors of this. So, he helped me connect with the editor-in-chief and all that, right? And so what we're trying to develop is, so we took all the data, all the, well-researched papers and, articles from Endo Text, and put it as a base to a chat system. So what you do is you go to the screen and you can select the section which you want, and then you can start asking questions just like you ask in case of a chat GPT. For example, let's say, what are the causes of osteoporosis in men, right? So it will quickly, within seconds, give you the answer. Now, a lot of people will say that, ye to chat GPT bhi karta hai, but trust me, ChatGPT is actually locked. It cannot give you certain medical answers, right? So we have actually unlocked it. So this system is only useful for doctors. You can almost literally make a diagnosis of a patient with this system, right? It's well researched. We have also again, gone back to experts from each of these subsections of endocrinology, where they approved some of the answers, where they said that some of the answers need change. So there's a lot of fine tuning here, right? And again, this is completely free. It's freely available right now. So it's endoai.co.in. And then of course you can download this entire thing into as a chat transcript, and then you can use it. I started using this now for also making some complex diagnosis, which in cases where I was not very sure, right? For example, a complex metabolic bone disease, right? And trust me, we are coming very close to the correct diagnosis, right? So I think it's great. Another thing, it's more of something as a side hobby to save my own time. The idea was to save my own time. You have patients. I'm sure a lot of doctors here have patients and relatives who send you this bunch of investigations, right? This big pile of, I'll not name the labs, but this big pile of whole body checkups and all that. So how do you navigate through that, right? So you make this little system where what you do is you upload this thing into the entire report into this, and it will generate all the relevant tests, right? So it will just take out the tests which are relevant because you have chromium levels and lead levels and all these things being done, which probably make no sense, right? So you take all the data which is relevant, right? So take all this data. So it took all the data. I said I'm an endocrinologist, so I need only the relevant data. So it took the prolactin value and testosterone value because they're relevant to my practice, right? So it did that, and it also gives you the analysis, right? In seconds, it will give you the analysis that this is right. So what I'm doing is that you have annoying relatives who keep sending you bunch of reports. I said, why did you do this instead of sending it to me? Why did you send it to my AI assistant? So you go to this link, upload it, it'll give you the analysis, and then we can probably, when we meet at Diwali time, we can discuss, right? So that's a little bit of a pet peeve, right? But I think it has a potential use also, I guess, in clinical practice as well. And finally, this is something we named it after Saraswati. This is one of the early projects right after Dr. GPT, which I was trying to develop. It's a very simple idea. I think you already have now tools available in a sense, but we are trying to add a little bit of our own flavor to it. So what you do is, we have a lot of research papers to read, right? So what you need to do is you need to upload the research paper on this platform, right? And what you can do is you can generate a 5 key points from this, right? Or you can generate a one-line summary, or you can generate a section-wise summary from that, right? So you can summarize the paper within seconds, you can read the paper, right? So it gives a one-line summary here, right? And you can see later on. And so the idea is to make reading research papers much more simpler, much more faster, much more efficient. And we are, again, not stopping there. We are going one step further, where now we're trying to develop a system where you can actually download the audio summary of the article in your own voice, right? So your AI generated system, which you're using as a backend, where you need to just give your voice sample first, just one time at the time of onboarding, right? So you just need to give your voice sample, and then it will generate the audio summary in your own voice. And then you can probably share it with your friends, saying that, no, look, I read this paper and this is the summary, right? In fact, I sent it to my wife, and she was not able to distinguish, whether it's my real voice or AI voice, right? That's freakily similar, right? The other thing, a lot of us, give a lot of talks, so you can convert the article into a PowerPoint presentation, right? So you just have the article downloaded, make it into a PowerPoint presentation, right? And you have that, on the go, right? So these are some things, little things which you are trying to develop. Again, consider me as, probably that mad scientist, unlike Arbinder, who is the entrepreneur, and that, guy in the lab who's trying to develop these things, which probably make no money, right? Probably only lose money, but just solve some little bit of curiosities here and there. So this is just to unlock. This is the potential of AI, right? I'm not an expert coder. I'm just a basic, side learning kind of person. But I have been able to develop this without much help from anybody else, right? I'm sure a lot of you with better resources can do better, and there's a lot of things which we can really help ourselves as well as our patients.
Thank you, Dr. Om. Endo AI seems to have improved a lot. I remember checking it out 3 months ago, and
Yeah.
today
So
totally different.
Yeah. So how do I often put it like this, that it's like, Endo AI is like your resident doctor, right? So, that whatever was 1 month back was the first year resident who had no idea what he's talking about, right? He was just learning. And now it's like a third year resident who will still make mistakes, right? But he knows a little bit more than what he knew maybe a few months back, right? So it's like that. So it's a third year resident now. Maybe it'll become a consultant soon. So hopefully.
Right. So, Dr. Arbinder, I know we have also been working very, very closely and very, very uh, focusedly on chatbots and many other applications of AI in diabetes care. So, could you share some ideas with us on what Fitterfly is working on?
Yeah. So a few months back, one thing which we realized by July that we had data of more than 10,000 patients who had undergone the CGM analysis within the Fitterfly. Now, for all of you out here, what we did at Fitterfly in the first 3 years was we created a food database of foods which people eat across India, 32 cuisines, 37,000 foods, their macronutrients, micronutrients. And this database was used for managing about 10,000 patients on various CGM devices. Plus, we had the data of all the patients who had asked our coaches various questions during sales, during interaction on chats, during WhatsApp. So we had all these databases. So we combined this into creating two main AI tools. One of them is called Jedi. I'll just show it on the screen. That's a very interesting tool. And the problem which we are trying to solve here is that people often need coaching, and human coaching is expensive. That if we want to hire, suppose India has like 100 million people and out of them 25% have smartphones, and we really want to serve them and guide them towards a healthy lifestyle with a completely automated model, it's practically impossible to hire so many coaches. Even if you count the number of people who are qualified coaches in India is very less. So we wanted to create this AI tool. Right now, I can see the head of our X Labs, Amar, also who leads this initiative on this webinar. So he and his team, working along with Dr. Vineet Nair, who's the Chief Medical Officer, Manthan, Neelesh, everybody, they've worked together and created this AI tool. Let me just show you. This is a wonderful tool. This is just a very empathetic AI. The reason why we called it Jedi was we just love Star Wars. And then we love the empathy, which is very important for diabetes care. In this, what we have done is there are capabilities. So one is it's an always available personalized AI coach. Secondly, a lot of people want to know if the meal was healthy for them or not. So it can immediately tell them if the meal was healthy or not. Third thing is, a lot of people have questions about diabetes. Their questions can be as simple on CGM device or on blood sugar levels or on various meals or on exercise or on stress or on sleep or on medications. All those questions which people have asked us over 7 years that we have codified into this FAQ data pack. And lastly, we have also built an AI-generated meal planner into this. So let me show you the first example. So when you log into Jedi, you can just ask it a question. When you start it, it can say, "Hey Amar, I can help you with one of the things," and you say, "Analyze my meal," and you can just chat with it and say that I had suppose a chicken burger along with some fries, French fries. You can just ask it. You can just type it like you're typing to a friend or a nutritionist. It'll immediately analyze your meal and tell you that it has carbohydrates, protein, fat, all those compositions. Then it will immediately tell you that this is not healthy for you. This is very high in carbohydrate, fat, and protein. You should change it. To make it healthy, you can do this. Then it just goes on. Like you can just chatting with it, and it will guide you completely like a dietitian would. So essentially, imagine the possibilities of this. The biggest problem which we face in managing diabetes for our patient is guiding them on nutrition. And when they come to your clinic, they have so many questions about nutrition. And you get tired of answering the same question for every single patient. They have the same question. Here, using AI, you can actually answer those questions in a very personalized manner for every single patient of yours. Second is the recipe suggestion. A lot of people with diabetes keep asking about various recipes. So here you can just chat with it. You can say, "Surprise me." And then you can say, which of these are you interested in? And when you say that I want to eat this particular type of cuisine, and when you select the cuisine, it'll fetch the full recipe details. It'll tell you how to cook it, what are the ingredients going into this. And then, in the next version, which we are launching, you can also watch a video of this, how to make this recipe. And in the future, we are also going to connect it to your grocery list. So suppose you have a diet plan, and you can in fact get your grocery list and even order it from internet. So keeps on recording all the data of your interactions so that it understands what kind of cuisines you like, what kind of foods you like, what kind of suggestions you like. And the last possibility which we are launching in this is a completely AI nutrition coach. So here in this, like talk to an AI coach, you can ask any question. So here it is Ammar, interacting with the coach. Like he had a lunch which was pretty heavy, and he was feeling bloated at 4 p.m. He had lunch at 2, and he was feeling very bloated with this lunch. He just sent a message to the AI coach, I'm feeling a little bloated. What can I do? And then immediately the AI coach very empathetically responds that you can go for a short walk, you can have a cup of peppermint tea or a ginger tea to soothe your stomach, and be careful in the next time. Then Ammar has further questions, and they can just keep on answering these questions in a very clinically proven scientific way. And all these questions, all this database has been vetted. We have a team of 60 dietitians who has worked on it. There are psychologists, 20 of them. There are 20 physiotherapists who talk about fitness. So all this data, all these interactions, nearly about 2.2 million data points have gone into creating this AI nutrition coach. Now, one of the things which Ammar is asking, can I go for a jog and what kind of snack I can have before the jog? So coach will immediately tell what kind of snack they can have, like a banana with a peanut butter or a small bowl of oatmeal. But Ammar is not satisfied. He says, oh, okay, can you tell me something which is diabetes specific, like diabetes healthy, just to be sure that it is what it is. So all these questions can be answered by the AI coach in a second. And this is all generated using the experience we had over the years. So this is one project which was launched about 6 weeks back, and we'll see the final version. The second version, which we have been working on in the AI capabilities for diabetes, is even more exciting. So we realized that CGM devices are very expensive to run, and each CGM device costs nearly 5,000 rupees, and people cannot keep on buying CGM devices again and again. What if we use the AI capabilities and then start predicting the glycemic responses? So Ammar and his team and all the data analysis team within Fitafly, they have created an AI engine, which is called Virtual CGM. We have filed a patent for it. So we crunch the data of 10,000 patients along with 37,000 Indian foods. And you can see the actual value on a CGM is in green and the predicted value is in pink. You can see a very, very close correlation, almost 85-90% accurate for meals and medications both. So what we did was we launched this into our app as a beta right now, and we are presenting a paper on it. Suppose I'll just show you a video of how it works. So it can, just like a CGM device, it tells you if you had a meal and how much time there will be a rise in blood sugar and how much the time for max size, and all these things appear into the app automatically even without a CGM device. The caveat is, to use this, you should have used a CGM device at least once, and then also fed in your food diary, exercise and medication very religiously. I'll show you a video of how it works in my own app. Even right now, I'm wearing a CGM device. So this was my breakfast. I'll just go one step back. So this was my breakfast in the morning. You can see the breakfast items here. And it calculates the calories and all those things. And the moment I feed this entry, you can see the glycemic response, how much it will be. And the most beautiful thing about Fitafly engine is we can also calculate the micronutrients in this meal. So this works as a behavioral tool where we are helping the people to make healthy choices. So if they're going to a restaurant or they're going to eat out, they can put in what they want to eat. It will tell them the approximate blood sugar rise, which is going to happen with those meals. Now just imagine the possibilities of this engine. If you're going to go shopping, you can just put in what you're going to shop or what you want for dinner, and it will tell you how much your blood sugar will rise. It's like a good behavioral tool to have. And it uses your own data, which has been there from the CGM device for first 15 days to start predicting with almost 85% accuracy for the common people. So these are the two most exciting products which we are working on. Besides that, we are also working on device-led data predictions for HRV along with diabetes, heart rate variabilities. That's another project which is going on.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Arbinder, for giving us a view and a glance into what Fitafly is doing with AI. And so actually my next question was very much similar to the answer that you gave right now on the use of AI in CGM. Because for me, there was a different question. Okay? Because I know that you have been working very closely with CGM and integration of AI. We already mentioned that. So
I just wanted to add one more thing there, Nilesh, which we did for CGM. We also realized that 10 to 12% of the times the CGM devices may not throw up an accurate data. We see false positive hypoglycemias. We saw abnormal fluctuations in CGM devices. What we also did was we built a kind of uh, we also built a kind of model that if somebody has a HbA1c of say 6.5, then what would be the typical morning or the post lunch or post meal blood sugars in that person? And we used a lot of AI to predict this glycemic responses. And if the feeling is out of tune with their biochemical profile and it's not matching on CGM, then it triggers a calibration logic. And that calibration logic is completely auto-driven because we realize that CGM devices, the MARD is the latest Libre one is about 9.3%. And sometimes it varies quite a bit. So we have built those logics also using technology so that we can help the people calibrate the CGM devices properly.
thank you. We do have a few questions around this. We'll take it up slightly later down. Dr. Om, how about your experience with using CGM and integrating AI in CGM? What do you think? What's the potential? What are the challenges?
Yeah, I think what Arbinder talked about is, I mean, it's brilliant actually. First of all, really fascinating work, especially the one where you could predict the glycemic, response to the nutrition of food that you're going to have. I think that's path breaking, and great that you got a patent because it's worth a lot. I think this is something which is very, very useful. I remember talking to Arbinder a while back, when Fitoflight just started, we talked about calibration. And I think it's great, that calibration is something which is very important because that is one of the challenges with use of CGM. Now, what happens is, just to explain, when you have the CGM, you get the raw data using third party. And, that raw data has to be calibrated to get the correct answer, right? Correct response in terms of sugar. Whereas if you're using the Abbott's original device, they have a factory calibration where they have this system built in, and which is proprietary. So there, values are definitely going to look more accurate because it's a factory calibrated system, right? Where they do calibration in batches. So I think that is the thing. I think a lot of third party players have figured out that you could use manual calibration for some of these things. And I think, Bitterplay is absolutely right in that, remember, I think there's a question somewhere that, a lot of these services, I think the service which you really need to sign up for and pay is the one which understands that they require calibration. I think that is the most important thing, right? That's for me, that's a differentiating factor, right? That, if you are telling me that you understand this as a problem and you are solving it, I think that's the one, where I'm going to put my hard-earned money on, right? So that's a very important thing. As far as the, AI is concerned, I'll tell you an interesting use case. I mean, it's just a simple one. A lot of people, just the generic chat GPT which you have right now, you can take a screenshot of your CGM report, put it out on now you can upload images also on chat GPT, at least in the plus version, which costs about $20 a month. So you put it up, it will give you the analysis of your CGM data, right? So the generic chat GPT, I'm not even talking about any sophisticated third party tool, which, Arbinder or me are developing. I think these are, the inbuilt system, right? Secondly, what you can do is there is an advanced data analytics tab in your chat GPT. So you can download the raw data from the CGM, take the data, just the CSV file or the TXT file, that's fine. You just put it up and it will generate the, graphs, which are very used to in your usual CGM kind of things. And you can probably then say that, we'll just have the data for Monday to, Saturday. And I don't know the data of Sunday, right? So something like that. You can actually customize a lot of these things in your own way, or tell me how many episodes of hypoglycemia my patient had, right? So that kind of data you can get. So all these things, will be very useful. And one suggestion I'll tell you to Arbinder, and I think something which will be also very useful. We talked about predictive analysis in terms of diet. I'd also be very interested in looking at the predictions in terms of the medications. I think this is something, where just as a top of my mind, pharma will actually pay good money for that. So
if you on it too, because we realize that a lot of patients are getting prescribed medications which are not matching their glycemic profiles.
Okay.
So
right.
we are working on that, but happy to involve you in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and the other thing, now you are in an era where you have a lot of generic medicines also available. You want to really see whether a glimepiride from company A works as good clinically from a glimepiride with company B, right? And when you have AI tools with CGM integrated, I think that is something which is going to be a game changer in terms of, because now you have, neutralize the other aspects, for example, the diet, you have all those things. Those are often the confounding factors. You remove all of that because you already have a system built for that. Now you just need to add a layer of perhaps, medication response, which would be, I think, something very useful. And, I think it's a great concept. I think this is somewhere really you can take this forward. And I think, if I could know exactly how my patient is going to respond to a particular drug, that is the drug I'm going to prescribe, right? It's as simple as that. So these are valuable insights which a doctor could have in their practice, where we can generate that in terms of the CGM analytics. I think that'll be very useful.
And just to add to what Om said, those are wonderful insights, Om. I think one of the things which CGM has opened our eyes to is the concept of glycemic variability. Yes. We know that two people with the same HbA1c or same fasting sugars somebody may have a fluctuation of only 40, others may have a fluctuation of 70. And people who have higher fluctuations are prone to more microvascular injuries. So what if we can predict the glycemic responses and decrease the glycemic variability to the minimum using a combination of lifestyle and the right medication, which will decrease the glycemic variability? I think that's the final frontier in diabetes, to decrease the microvascular long-term complications. I think that's another exciting area which we definitely want to work on.
No, it's very interesting. And, coming to that, I think it's very important for, we have about, a lot of physicians are listening to this. I think we need to be aware of the fact that it is only sooner, if not later, that time in range is going to be the fundamental factor which you're going to monitor, and not HbA1c, right? Things are going to change because the end of the day, now we know that there's a correlation between time in range and HbA1c. And hence, I think from all the factors considered, and I'm sure there'll be a big trial like a UKPDS or DCCT, which then looks at data from a time in range perspective. And trust me, for sure, anybody who has a better time in range, irrespective of the HbA1c, is probably going to do better in terms of the microvascular complications. We always wondered, you had patients who had good HbA1c for a long time, yet developed complications. You used to wonder why, right? But now I think the answer to that is time in range, right? Perhaps those people did not have a good time in range. So I think that is where the fundamental shift is happening in the diabetology field, that we are moving away from HbA1c. I never thought I would say this in my life, and moving towards time in range. That's what really things are changing.
So, moving away from HbA1c, never say never, never say forever. And the second thing is, we are moving from the era of TIR predicting complication to AI and TR decreasing the risk of complications.
Yes.
True. Okay, so very interesting. Everybody seems to be quite optimistic about the use of CGM and AI together. So now let's go from CGM to insulin pumps. Why not AI and insulin pumps? So we do have few FDA-approved closed-loop insulin pumps which are powered by AI. As a student of medical informatics, I've been looking at presentations from the Indian Institute of Science on the artificial pancreas that they're working on for quite a few years now. So we know that AI has a potential there. So Dr. Om, can you tell us the efficacy of these closed-loop AI-powered insulin pumps, and what are the safety implications of using these?
Yeah. So I think, this is where AI really came very early in terms of the, use cases in medicine. There was, you already have, right now we have hybrid closed-loop devices available in India. Just to name one, we have Medtronic 780G, which is a hybrid closed-loop device, right? So we are close to the closed loop, but not perfectly there. And all of them use proprietary machine learning algorithms, which are there at backend, right? So they're already using AI in their system. Now, the problem, the issue there is that it's only predicting basal insulin doses, right? So it's only looking at one aspect. Remember, diabetes management has two parts. One is basal insulin, other is the bolus, right? Now, it has been able to, we have solved the problem as far as basal insulin is concerned. We have done it very well. We have been using 780G in quite a few of our patients, and it's beautiful, right? Especially type 1. So this is where, I think mainly we are dealing with type 1 diabetes in such cases. So it's probably, I've moved away from giving pumps to type 2, mainly type 1 where we are still using the pumps. So 780G works beautifully. We had patients who were notorious in their, poor glycemic control, recurrent admissions for all kinds of complications, including both DK and hypoglycemia admissions. And just putting them on a pump, 780G solved the problem, right? I think overnight, I have not seen them for a while, but I hear that they're doing well, right? Which is, I think, a big remarkable thing, which I think no device could say, but this one does it, right? I think the second layer, the second problem which we need to solve is in terms of the bolus dosing, right? So if you could have a device which you don't have to worry about how much, you just need to probably share a photo of what you're going to eat, or probably type what you're going to eat into their mobile phone and communicate with the device, and then it will automatically give you the correct bolus dose. That solves the problem. And I think that is where a lot of, Fit-Flies data is going to be hopefully also be useful in future for developing a bolus, a complete true closed loop device. And then the third layer, the final frontier of closed loop devices is actually to have dual. I think we are again close to that. There are already clinical trials done with a company called iNet, which have dual, hormone devices where you have both the insulin as well as glucagon. Remember, your pancreas has both these hormones. So you have both the hormones in the system, and you are able to kind of fine tune the diabetes management in terms of both the insulin release and glucagon release. So I think we are very close to that. Right now, we already have one device, hybrid closed loop, available in India. But having said that, there is a big underground movement behind us, which is called the DIY movement. Search it up. There are a lot of type 1 patients themselves or their parents and family members who are actually developing systems outside the existing device controls, where they're hacking into the devices, taking the data and doing their own innovations on that, right? And they've they've actually done a lot of work, which is quite fantastic. They've almost been able to crack the problem of a complete closed loop device on their own without any kind of financial support from outside, right? So I think it's quite. What I would say is, I think we really need to open this up, right? It needs to be open source. There needs to be people who are actually, living the lives of type 1 really are the people who are already taking charge of that. We need to support that. And I think, AI makes this job much easier, much simpler, and perhaps, even better nuance than what we are already doing.
Thank you. Dr. Arbinder, a question for you around R&D now. So AI, we have always believed that data mining with AI will give us invaluable research insights in how to develop new treatment options for diabetes and how to change the current protocols. So how do you envision data mining with AI shaping the future of research in diabetology, Dr. Arbinder?
I think that's where one of the things which is going to radically transform is the full clinical trial industries. At the current way the clinical trials are done, there's a trial done, data collected, then over 3 to 6 months analysis, then a paper publication. Just imagine real-time data collection, real-time adjustments, real-time analysis, and automated paper publication with the right referencing. So the whole value chain can be fast-forwarded. And more importantly, like Om and I just discussed about the impact of drug on TIR, you don't need to wait for HbA1c. If you can impact the TIR, then you automatically do not need to wait for a longer time. The full drug discovery, drug trials, everything can become much fast forward. The drugs which take 10, 15 years to come to market, using the power of AI data and their impact on a shorter term, and then using the models to predict their impacts over the longer term, can really fast forward the drug trials and drug discovery in a big way. And to extend it to even the current day, the approved drugs, I think using the power of AI, we can use the right combination of drug along with the lifestyle modification, and also de-escalation of therapy prediction can be a very important tool, because we find that if person is motivated about the lifestyle, what we have seen in the Fit-Fly program is that people are coming within 5 to 10 years of diabetes and recommended by a doctor and closely followed up on lifestyle, they need de-escalation of diabetes therapy. Their medications need to be reduced. All that AI can help us in a big way in automatically sending a message to the doctor that, this patient might be headed towards hypoglycemia in 2 weeks from now. Consider de-escalation of therapy. And all this data can be collected real time and build predictive models both for research and for clinical use.
Great. So I have one last question before I take the questions from the audience, but I would like to put out a poll before that, because my question is on the barriers to implementation. There are 50, 60 people over here who have actually been here because they understand that, or they believe that AI would really help out in diabetes care management. So what are the barriers to implementing AI in your practice? This is what I want the audience to answer. And while I get the poll done, Dr. Om, this question is to you. So, most of the doctors today are already using some form of EMR or some basic HIS to collect all the data of the patients and, maintain their records. So, how difficult is it going to be for these doctors who are already using current systems to integrate AI? Is it going to completely change the technology that they're currently using? And how difficult it is to plug in AI into the current systems? Dr. Om, your thoughts?
It's very easy. It's very easy to do it. For example, like, Fitterfly, you use your own data set to generate, AI-based systems. Every doctor with an EMR is a potential gold mine of data. I used to say, we used to have discussions on EMR, earlier. And I used to say that, look, you're all people are sitting on gold mine of data. Enter it meticulously, because, this data will be worth a lot of, money. Still, of course, we're not been encashing the data. The point is that at this point of time, you have an existing data set. You can very easily use AI in any way which you like to do a couple of things. Maybe publish a paper, right? It's very easy to do. Like Arbinder said, it's now very easy to go through the entire chain of publication, which is much simpler now. Secondly, you might be able to find certain connections in the data which you did not thought existed, right? For example, just out of hunch. So we, took a diabetology data. We just analyzed a patient data set of about 20 patients. And what we found was that there was an interesting correlation, negative correlation between the BMI and urine albumin creatinine ratio. Now, this is something which I would not have thought. This is an AI model coming out with a correlation. It was a significant correlation, right? And we looked at some of the papers and found that there is some interesting there. Maybe that becomes a future, research work, which could, have good important clinical implications in the future. So what I'm trying to say is that your own data set, your existing data set, you can generate a lot of insights. It could be medical insight, but it could also be, very interestingly, business insights also. For example, let's say, you would be able to find out which doctor is really referring your patients to you, or which area your patients are coming from, right? In terms of a simple, so you take your data, patient name, where do they come from, or whatever PIN code, address, whatever you have, right? Just put it on ChatGPT, and it can actually make you a map of where your patients are coming from, right? Which part of Mumbai are your patients coming from? Which part of Ahmedabad are your patients coming from, right? Perhaps, if you're planning to do a medical camp, why not do it in the area where your patients are really coming from? I think, so those kind of things, you can develop business insights into the system. All of these can be done now without knowing much, details of coding or anything. In fact, for example, I just give you an example. You take this data, right? You take your data, ask your EMR provider to give you your data in a CSV format. It's called CSV. It's like something like an Excel. So you get data in a CSV format. Take the data, go to ChatGPT, click on Advanced Data Analytics, upload the data, and write a few prompts saying that, can you make a map of where my patients are coming from? Can you make you a map of your location with where your clustering of patients are from? Or try to find me interesting insight, which is an uncommon link between my data set. So you'll probably find some interesting correlation between your triglyceride level and probably your, SGPT level, right? Something like that, which you probably did not think that it existed. So all this could be then used for your own, perhaps, generation of a research work or unique research work, right? Or you can probably use it in your own practice, understanding that these are things which are correlated, and perhaps, use it effectively in your clinical practice. So I think there is a lot of potential to do easily without requiring too much of knowledge of data science or, too deep knowledge of coding. I think you can do it at your own convenience from your own data set, provided, of course, I think this is a very important point of time where I must stress out and really point it out that, remember, If you are using a commercial EMR system, it's a good time to go back to your EMR provider and ask them who owns the data. I think it's a very important question, which a lot of the time if we sign all these release forms where we don't read the fine print, it could so happen that the data you're entering into their system, XYZ system, I'll not name any system, XYZ system is not owned by you. That data is actually owned by somebody else. And when you're trying to use that data in a maybe a commercial way, you might face legal challenges also. So I think you need to be careful. I think it's a good point of time now going back to your EMR provider and asking them who owns the data, because this data, like I said, is going to be a gold mine. It is going to, perhaps generate a lot of return in terms of both academic value as well as maybe commercial value as well. So I think it's a good time to really talk to your EMR providers about this.
Thank you, Dr. Om. I am sharing the results of the poll on what doctors over here think is the real barrier to their using AI. So only one option was allowed to be used as an answer. So these are unique values. The lack of adequate training does come out to be a very, very big factor over here. And Dr. Arbinder, we have been trying to get doctors to shift to digital technology and AI in diabetes care management. So what do you think is the barrier in minds of doctors to using AI more effectively?
I think doctors have identified correctly. One is the lack of training. Second is the fear of unknown. I think these are the two biggest barriers. But we know that technology only moves forward. There are only two paths, as Om said in the beginning, either be with the flow or, be left behind. So I think doctors need training and doctors need comfort that this is going to help them. And this webinar, I hope, has opened their mind to see AI in the rightful way, which is an assistant, service, or a kind of, helpful tool which they should use in the practice for patient benefit, for research, for their own publicity, for writing papers, for clinical outcomes, so many different uses. So I think once they see it as a use, then the only thing left is how do they get trained in using it in a more effective way in their day-to-day practice.
Perfect. So I was just going through the questions from the audience. Generally, people are like, there was one question on costs. Maybe these AI-powered tools are too costly for the patients. So there was one question on that. And then there's another question on, there were some people who said that their DIY works for them and they've been using it, more than a couple of them. So yeah, so generally we have the consensus here that people are interested. 60 to 70% haven't started, but around 30% have either started or going to start very soon. And like even the obstacle, the barrier was inadequate training. Maybe we should have more webinars like this, because 40 now, 50 people were there completely throughout the webinar, listening to all the thoughts across. So I guess there is that interest level there in the audience. So since we do not have any more questions and we have just 9 p.m., we could close down this webinar right now. Thank you to the audience for being here and listening to us patiently for the last 1 hour. Thank you, Dr. Om. It's been a dream webinar. I've been wanting to do something with you for a very long time. And today getting you on AI with Arbinder.
Yeah. Great.
Last fall 6 times. So fun having you, Dr. Om. Thank you, Dr. Arbinder, for being here and sharing everything with us. And good night, everyone. Thank you once again. Jai Hind.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Good night, Arbinder. Good night, Neelesh.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.